The lighting in my room today is so on and off, just like my social life. Hi everybody! So today I'm going to be giving you 3 reasons why you should read Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozie Adichie. I know I shove this book in your face all the time, I know I shove many different books in your face all the time. I only read a few books, and the few books that I read I like, so I shove them in your face. Purple Hibiscus is a literary fiction adult contemporary story set in Nigeria. So the basic plot of this story follows 15-year-old Kambili, who lives with her father, her mother, and her older brother. And the story follows her and her brother as they go to live with her aunt for a while, and how that serves to be a huge life-changing and perspective-changing moment for her. But today I wanted to talk about the 3 main themes that I picked up when reading this book. That's by all means necessary, not everything that you'll get out of reading it, but those are the 3 things that stuck out to me the most, and I think those are the 3 reasons why people should read this book. The first reason, of course, is that it provides an excellent analysis on class and privilege. Kambili's father is very rich, so she lives quite a sheltered and privileged life. She lives in a big house, they have servants, they have food on the table 24/7, but that reality soon changes when she goes to spend time with her aunt Ifeoma and her 3 cousins along with her brother. I really love that particular aspect of the story because we got to see how Kambili and her older brother Jaja get to experience this kind of new way of living. A smaller house, less rooms, the current and electricity and the plumbing are not always guaranteed to be functioning. The fact that they oftentimes have to ration and they can't eat as much as they want and they can't do as much as they want, which really does show how people within the same country, within the same community, within the same family live completely different lives. It was a really nice check your privilege kind of scene. It's something that you go through all of the time when you're talking to people and you realize, okay, this person doesn't understand where you're coming from because they were never able to experience that, which happened to me a few times in the past, and it's something that really makes you open up your eyes and say, wow, what I have taken for granted my entire life is something that other people wish they had or never was able to experience. And you would often think that it's the grander things like, okay, maybe you get to travel twice a year, maybe you get the new iPhone every time it comes out, but also just simpler things like electricity, having food on the table, being able to buy clothes, being able to have internet, and little simpler stuff like that. So that in of itself is one of the main reasons why this book stood out to me a lot. The second thing I like about this book, and the second reason I think everybody should read it, is that it really does provide an insight onto the lingering effects that colonialism still has on Nigeria and Nigerian people today. So Kambili's father is very involved with the church, he's very Christianic. He doesn't like them to speak Igbo, which is their natural language in the house. He prefers them to speak English with him. And he almost completely condemns any sort of traditional African culture or religion. One of my favorite things in the book was on page 13 where Kambili said, Auntie Ifeoma said once that Papa was too much of a colonial product. She had said this about Papa in a mild, forgiving way, as if it were not his fault, as one would talk about a person who was shouting gibberish from a severe case of malaria. I think it was Chimamanda Adichie herself who once said in a post that she prefers to identify as Igbo over Black or Nigerian, because Nigeria and blackness are constructs of colonialism. But Igbo was there before. Igbo was their identity and their ethnicity before all of that happened, and I think that sentiment of Adichie really sort of made its way into this book in a subtle way. And the final thing I want to talk about with regards to this book is that it makes for an excellent gendered analysis. When I'm reading books, I tend to notice like these subtler things. Things like when, the girls are in the house helping the aunt out make the food, whereas the boys are outside playing in the yard and having a good time. But gender, I think, operates within the grander scheme of this novel, and I think that's one of the main issues with regards to this particular context. I've talked about Kambili's father being rich, being strict, being colonialist, but he is also abusive. He is abusive towards her brother, and her mother. Now this is the meat of the discussion. This is where I really wanted to get to, because I wanted to talk about this with reference to a statement that was made by the Prime Minister of my country a few months ago. He was being interviewed and they asked him what he thought about the state of domestic violence in Trinidad and Tobago. And in addition to saying that the government is doing all they can, he also said this.
The Prime Minister to do something about crime. I'm not in your bedroom, I'm not in your choice of men. You have a responsibility to determine who you associate with and know when to get out, and the state will try to help.
I mean, was there any at all legitimacy to what he said? Of course, we all have to be responsible for our own well-being to an extent, hence we have to be extra cautious about the people we choose to commit ourselves to. However, his sentiments is lacking serious analysis and serious context. Now, I'm not trying to target him specifically because this is a sentiment that a lot of people have, as you can tell by the amount of applause he got by saying that. And you hear it all the time in Trinidad. Oh, why she staying with he if he beaten she? Like, she like that? But seriously, you are ignoring the bigger picture when you say that. First of all, a guy could be a certain way before he puts a ring on it and a certain way after. Secondly, we are ignoring the fact that we have this very dangerous, very problematic, often violent construct of what ideal masculinity should be, and then we socialize girls to go after that. And then there's the fact that a lot of women are financially and socially dependent on their husbands. So even though they become victims, they can't just get up and leave it. It's not that perfect. It doesn't work like that. And when addressing domestic violence, we really need to talk about the fact that children are also victims of domestic violence as well. Unlike grown men and grown women who can choose better partners, children can choose better parents. This book, I personally think, addresses that issue in a way that I think it needs to be addressed. Throughout the entire novel, I don't think Kambili ever says that her father is abusive or that he abuses her. This is because she comes to accept this as normal. She thinks that this narrative of the man being in charge and the man having control over the agency of his children and his wife is how things are supposed to be. And of course that notion is challenged when she goes to live with her aunt, who is a more liberal person, who is not confined to the desires of a man or a husband, who defines herself based on herself and not in the context of a woman's role or in the context of a relation to another man, if that makes sense. And in talking about Kambili's situation, you really see how it's sort of legitimized by institutions that subscribe to the idea and the notion that gender is this sort of hierarchical thing. And it also legitimizes violence as a policing tool to ensure that. But yeah, I could go on and on and on about this book. It's absolutely important, and I think you should read it for all of those reasons. If you have read it, I would love to know your thoughts on it. If you've read anything else by Adichie, let me know. I've only read this and The Thing Around Your Neck, but I really want to read some more by her because I just think she's an excellent author. That being said, I'm going to end this video now because it has been almost a freaking half an hour. These construction people are making so much noise outside my window and it's driving me insane. So before I have a meltdown in front of the camera, I hope you all have a lovely, lovely day. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, inshallah, keep reading.